The Daleks, the Cybermen, the Master. All villains that have garnered respect, fear, love, adoration from fans and many across their numerous appearances in Doctor Who. But sometimes, a villain only has to have one appearance to garner the same kind of feel that they give. A villain such as the Celestial Toymaker, who's only had one on-screen appearance against the first Doctor in the story of the same name. But regardless of this, he has gone on to be explored in various other forms of media, such as the novels, the comics, and of course, audio stories. And with the current speculation that Neil Patrick Harris will be portraying none other than the Celestial Toymaker, I decided that as Madman with a Box's resident Big Finish expert, it says it right there in our live streams, I should explore Big Finish's outings with one of Doctor Who's most iconic villains. And where better to start than the old monthly adventures. For Big Finish's 120th release of their former monthly main range, the 7th Doctor and his companions Ace and Hex were pitted against the Doctor's long unseen foe in the Magic Mousetrap. The story focuses on the Doctor as he finds himself with amnesia and within an exclusive sanatorium for the rich and famous, where if they're not being subjected to shock therapy, they're just playing games, passing the time. But the Doctor suspects that somebody is playing an altogether more sinister game than the patients partake in their own spare time. Someone with a score to settle, the Toymaker. Now the story itself is very interesting from the structure and the plot of itself, because spoilers, the story takes place after they have defeated the Toymaker on a separate unseen adventure, and this is essentially a epilogue / continuation of that. The overall plan is that everyone has been subjected to amnesia aside from 3 people, the head of the sanatorium and Ace and Hex. They're the ones that need to make sure that the plan is going right. But they have defeated the Toymaker. His powers have been split across all the different patients and the Doctor. But to make sure that the plan is effective and works out to essentially starve the Toymaker so he ceases to be or is rendered powerless, they need to forget what the plan is. But because the Doctor is the Doctor, he's very, how would you say, intuitive, doesn't particularly stick to his plans or his own rules. He accidentally messes it up and unleashes the Toymaker again. And I really found that very interesting with this story. And the fact that the Toymaker doesn't actually have I don't believe, if I recall, an actual listed voice actor, because the Toymaker doesn't have a proper physical appearance in this box set, despite the fact you kind of see his silhouette on the cover of it. He is primarily within a doll, and if I recall correctly, the doll speaks with either the head of the sanatorium's voice or the Doctor's, or a mix of the two. So I found that very interesting. And overall, the story itself, I think, is a really, really good one. So it's one you can definitely just throw yourself into, listen on its own. I think it's a fantastic story. But that would not be Big Finish's last outing with the Toymaker himself, because they would be delving back to a very famous story, a lost story, if you will. To kickstart the Lost Stories, a range that would adapt stories that were originally planned for previous seasons of Classic Who, but never truly saw the light of day, Big Finish began with one that would have starred the Toymaker himself, The Nightmare Fair. The story has quite a bit of history. In the originally planned Season 23, The first episode would have been The Nightmare Fair, and saw the return of Michael Gough as the Celestial Toymaker, pitting him against the Sixth Doctor and Perry. However, with that version of Season 23 being shelved due to the show's near cancellation and 18-month hiatus, The Nightmare Fair was seemingly lost until its writer, Graham Williams, adapted it as a novel. After an unofficial audio adaptation, The Nightmare Fair saw its return in the Lost Stories, with David Bailey cast in the role as the Celestial Toymaker due to Michael Gough's retirement at the time. And if you would like to see more info about this, Josh Snares did a fantastic video about The Nightmare Fair, the entire history of that story. Definitely check it out, it's an amazing video. Now, The Nightmare Fair, the official audio story, the start of the Lost Stories, which I would say is a fantastic choice to start off this range. It is probably one of, aside from maybe Sharda, with its 20 million adaptations, a very well known and recognized Lost story. So having it be the kickstart for the Lost Stories audio adaptation range, it was a fantastic choice. The story itself still would follow very similar to the plot of the original planned story and novel. The difference being that the Celestial Toymaker is now in a different body, given that he's now voiced by David Bailey. I think the implication is that it would have followed from the Divided Loyalty story, which kind of, if I recall, kind of delved into the origin, per se, of the Toymaker and his history with the Doctor. But the Toymaker is not limited to one body. No, it's as if it's as if he was planned to be a Time Lord. I'm not kidding. That's an actual true fact. The Toymaker was originally planned to be a Time Lord, but if you've read Divided Loyalties, you know that idea was kind of adapted. But the Toymaker is in a different body, and he wants his revenge on the Doctor in his Nightmare Fair. The story itself is fine. It's an okay story, but David Bailey does, I think, a really good job as the Celestial Toymaker. He's very menacing. He's a constant threat throughout this story, and his glee in playing these games is so good. I enjoyed a lot of this because of David Bailey. He did a fantastic job. But the story itself, I think it's a fine story. It was an okay story. They played it safe, starting the Lost Stories. So, yeah, I'll give it that. But the nightmare that the Toymaker casts would continue one last time, shifting his games over to another Big Finish range. To conclude the fourth series of the Companion Chronicles range, Big Finish threw 8th Doctor companion Charlotte Charlie Pollard against the cosmic puppeteer himself in solitaire. The story follows Charlie as she finds herself in a toy shop with none other than the Celestial Toymaker. With the Doctor reduced to a puppet, Charlie must endure the Toymaker's riddles and games if she wishes to survive. Now, this story, probably one of these three audio stories to feature the Toymaker, Solitaire is probably one of the best. It is a fantastic story, bolstered by the performances by India Fisher and David Bailey as Charlie and the Toymaker respectively. It's amazing. They've done this before with, coincidentally, with the 8th Doctor and Charlie, of only having the two of them together for a story. They are literally the only characters in that story going on. Scherzo, probably not how it's pronounced, but in that story it's just the two of them, and that's a fantastic story. That is an absolutely amazing story that is like bolstered by their performances. The performances alone in that story is amazing, and this is almost on the same level with Solitaire. Charlie against the Toymaker, trying to figure out his riddles. The Toymaker there just, something is not entirely right. He's just standing there goading her, watching everything go on, and Charlie trying to figure out what is happening. Sometimes being thrown into the deep end. Is that how you say it? And making mistakes, but trying to uncover what is the Toymaker's actual game that's going on. There's actually more to what is happening in this toy shop. But their performances together, the story itself is fantastic. But unfortunately, this was the last that we saw of the Toymaker. Well, heard, because it's an audio story, but this is the last that we saw / heard of the Toymaker in Big Finish, which is unfortunate. The Toymaker is such an interesting villain. I'm surprised that it was only these 3 stories that he's featured in. I would have thought that he would be explored like a bit more, but sometimes less is better. Less is more. Whatever the phrase is. You don't want to waste a good thing a lot of times. In very small doses can you really enjoy certain things. So if this is all we're getting with the Toymaker, while unfortunate, I think they are at least good stories overall. You got some okay to some fantastic stories featuring the Toymaker. But if we got more in the future, hey, come on, I'm there for it. Okay, I'm definitely there for it. Yeah, you want to see my bank account? It's almost empty because of Big Finish. Not really, it's a joke, but I am spending quite a lot. It's a kind of a problem at this point. That is it for this video, talking about the Toymaker's outings in Big Finish. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all for watching. Go check out the previous videos. Go check out our live streams when we go live, obviously. And I will see you all in the next one. Hopefully, the Toymaker returns someday soon. Ciao.